Golovin, an unremarkable place. Golovin lies on the outskirts of the Tau Empire. An unknown place. Golovin produced nothing of great renown, instead specialising in the production of vast amounts of military-grade rubber seals, used in the manufacture of biohazard suits and masks to equip the Astra Militarum. An unforgotten place. Watched over by the Swords of Dawn, Golovin had one solitary claim as being a place of historic importance, but it was not a claim its inhabitants revelled in. Golovin was the site of the destruction of the Dusk Knights Adeptus Astartes, where the Alpha Legion struck a blow against the Imperium and brought the ruin of the galaxy one step closer. The Swords of Dawn had been there that day. The strike cruiser Thunderfall had accompanied its brother chapter in their pursuit of the heretics. Containing only a demi-company of the Vanguard Primaris Marines, however, the Swords of Dawn had been dispatched to bring news of the attack to the wider Imperium, to preserve their gene seed, and to bring fiery vengeance of the Imperium upon the traitors once reinforcements arrived. The reason for the Alpha Legion's presence on Golovin was never discovered. When the reinforcement fleet arrived, no trace of them could be found, save for the burned and broken corpses of the Dusk Knights. The Inquisition conducted an investigation into the planetary governorship, interrogating a huge number of adepts, ancillary staff and nobles, but no evidence of the corruption at the planetary scale was uncovered. The planet was declared loyal to the Imperium and the investigation closed. The bodies of the Astartes warriors were buried where they fell, the battlefield being preserved as a monument to the fallen and the heroism of the Dusk Knights. It became known locally as the Bolter Fields. The Swords of Dawn swore a vow to watch over the world as penance, and from that day to this they have conducted regular patrols into the system and maintain a dedicated emergency vox link with the world in case the Alpha Legion return. In exchange, the world has pledged its support to the Swords of Dawn, with several notable members of the chapter raised from the aspirants of that world. The years pass by, the Swords of Dawn battling through the Jericho Reach to win more worlds back into the Imperial fold, but still they hold true to their vow. Now it is the time of the Hisatsu to visit the system and assess the candidates hopeful of being raised to the ranks of the Space Marines, to monitor interstellar traffic and to ensure there is no taint of the heretic upon the planet's surface. But much has changed, and the former capital city has been brought to its knees by a rebellion amongst the populace. Little did the Swords of Dawn realise, but rebellion has been stirring amongst the working populace, a rebellion of genetics as much as one of ideals, but no less deadly for that. And the Swords of Dawn are about to find out just how secretive and stealthy the Alpha Legion truly are. So here we have today's army for you. It's a 2,000 point force of Space Marines. It's a pure Primaris force, and it's made up of a single battalion. We have the chapter tactics are hungry for battle and duelists. Hungry for battle is +1 to advance and charge, and duelists is every 6 to hit in melee automatically wounds. The battalion is comprised of 2 parts. We have this vanguard part here, and we also have a Tacticus armoured section. The narrative behind that is that the vanguard forces here are a recon patrol, and the Tacticus armoured group is coming to reinforce them once they've discovered the enemy forces. So the vanguard here are led by the Phobos captain on the right hand side. That is Captain Soren Valdir of the 3rd Company. He is the warlord of the force. He has the Marksman's Honours warlord trait. He is also a master of the Trifold Path for a 2nd warlord trait, which is Master of Ambush from the Raven Guard Codex supplement. He's armed with a Mastercrafted Instigator Bolt Carbine, and his relic is the Shadow Master Cloak for a 3-up invulnerable save in cover. Marksman's Honours adds an extra damage to his shooting attack, and Master of Ambush lets him redeploy himself and another infantry unit prior to the start of the battle. Next to him we have a 5-man infiltrator squad. This is Lightning Squad. They are armed with marksman bolt carbines, and they also have an infiltrator comms array. Next to them is Shadow Squad. This is a 10-man infiltrator squad, armed the same with marksman bolt carbines and the comms array. At the back we have 2 squads of eliminators. We have Hurricane Squad on the left, armed with bolt sniper rifles, and we have Magma Squad on the right, armed with las fusils. And here we have the Rapid Reaction Force, the Tacticus armoured section of the army today. This is led by Sabre Company's chaplain, Xander Grell, who you can see in the bottom left of the screen. He has the Hero of the Chapter stratagem applied to him, and he has taken Feigned Flight as his warlord trait, which allows him to fall back, shoot and charge in the same turn. He has 3 litanies. He has the standard litany of hate that all chaplains are equipped with. He has the Exaltation of Rage, which multiplies the melee damage of a unit within 6 inches, and he has the Raven Guard specific litany, Swift as the Raven. He is accompanied by the Obsidian Sentinels, the 3 Blade Guard veterans that you can see to his right, to the right on the screen, and the ancient Corin Salinar, who just behind them. The Rapid Reaction Force also has a 5-man squad of intercessors. This is Hydra Squad, equipped with Stalker bolt rifles. There are 2 Outrider squads. This is Cyclops Squad. They have no upgrades. To the back right of the screen you can see Honoured Ancient Zimaseo. He's a Redemptor Dreadnought with a heavy onslaught Gatling cannon, an onslaught Gatling cannon, storm bolters and the Icarus rocket launcher. We have the Impulsor Sirocco, which has the heavy, the Icarus, not the Icarus, the Iron Hail heavy stubber. We have 2 storm bolters to either side, and we have the shield dome. Finally we have the Repulsor Executioner Nebula, which is armed with the Laser Destroyer, twin heavy bolters, heavy onslaught Gatling cannon and all the other toys. Cool.
So this is my 2000 points Alpha Legion list. It is a battalion. I run with 11 command points. I spend 1 on an extra warlord trait. My warlord is a Chaos Lord in Terminator armor. He's got the Headhunter warlord trait, which allows him to target characters. He's got the Relic, the Viper's Bite, which is a combi bolter. It comes with a Power Fist as well. And he's got the Marcus Slanesh. I then have a Sorcerer with Jump Pack. He has got Marcus Slanesh, Prescience, and Delightful Agonies as his psychic powers. And then his additional warlord trait is Master of Diversion, which allows you to redeploy 3 other units other than himself before the game begins, as long as he's on the board. I then have 3 identical Chaos Space Marine squads. They're all Marcus Slanesh. They have 1 las cannon in each, and the rest are just bolt guns. Onto my elites, I've got 2 6-man Khorne Berserker units, both identical, both got a Power Fist on a sergeant, all got chain axes, chain swords, got an Icon of Wrath for reroll charges, and they're both going to be riding in the Turax pattern Termite Assault Drill, which is also Marcus Slanesh and has 2 Storm Bolters. My next elite choice is a 10-man unit of Noise Marines. We have 8 Sonic Blasters in the unit, 2 Blast Masters, and the champion has a Power Fist. I then have a 5-man Terminator squad, all kitted out the same. They've all got a Combi Plasma and a Chain Axe each, again Marcus Slanesh. We then have a full squad of bikers. There's 9 of them. Got 2 melter guns on 2 of the riders. They've all equipped with chain swords, apart from the champion, who has a combi bolter in his hand as well as the combi bolter on his bike. There's quite a lot of shots coming from them. I have a 5-man Havoc squad for my heavy sport choice. They have 4 missile launchers, and the sergeant just comes with a bolt gun and a chain sword. And my last heavy sport choice and my last unit is my favourite, the 3 obliterators, Mark Slanesh, as they come, flesh metal guns for the win.
Hi and welcome to the debrief of today's game. As you've seen, it was between my Adeptus Astartes Swords of Dawn and the Alpha Legion. We played the priority target mission from Chapter Approved 2020, 2,000 points, and hopefully, as I say, you'll have seen the build-up, the narrative introduction to the game. I have to sadly report that the Alpha Legion won the day. The final score was 87 to 56, with both armies scoring the full 10 bonus points for being fully painted. The mission secondaries, both armies took deploy scramblers. The Alpha Legion then took engage on all fronts, and the mission specific priority target secondary. The Swords of Dawn took grind them down and domination. The game started pretty well for me, to be honest. First couple of turns, very few casualties, took control of the centre of the board. First 2 turns, maxed out on the primary objectives. The Alpha Legion had reserved a lot, nearly 1,000 points of their army. That came in on turn 2 and started dealing damage from turn 3. The termite drill made a 10-inch charge on my repulsor executioner and ripped it a new one in combat. The obliterators teleported in and did what obliterators do with endless cacophony and sort of shot the heart out of the army. We had 5 Terminators also teleported in with combi plasmas, didn't miss a shot in their first volley. They took out the 2 squads of Outrider bikes over the game. The Blade Guard did reasonably well, took down the Havocs, but then got mushed by the Obliterators in combat, ironically, and somewhat embarrassingly. So what went wrong, or why did it go wrong? I think looking back at the list, there was a huge imbalance in terms of units. The Repulsor Executioner at nearly 400 points is a big investment, and the way the list works with the two separate forces, one coming to support the other, meant that the Repulsor was on its own a little bit. There was a big gap at the back of the board as I moved it up to get line of sight on stuff. That let the termite drill come in behind, and from that point you take your chances as to whether or not it's going to make the charge. I was unlucky that it did. The odds were certainly against it making that charge, and if it hadn't, then I probably would have destroyed it in the following turn. From that point on, the game goes very differently. But I can't look past the fact that that imbalance is there, that sort of disparity in force balance. Other than that, to be honest, it was a bit of a bad day with the dice, but that happens. The rest of the force went pretty well, I think, but that one imbalance is something that I'm going to rectify in my next game. I've taken the repulsor out of the list or this list going forwards, and I'm going to be replacing it with 5 plasma inceptors, 5 more stalker intercessors, and I've swapped out the chaplain for a second captain from the Indomitus box. He'll be taking the Vox Aspiratum to buff his reroll aura out to 9 inches, and he takes the Swift and Deadly Warlord trait from the Raven Guard supplement that pushes his out a 6-inch aura of allowing units to advance and charge. So that will really help the Blade Guard. It'll mean I don't have to be quite so aggressive with the impulsor going forward. And it'll make a difference with things like bikes. I'll probably look at reserving the Dreadnought as well, letting that walk on so that when the captain advances up the field, he can potentially buff the Dreadnought as well. Hopefully those 3 big sort of punchy units making combat all at the same time will be a bit more significant in terms of swinging the game in my favour. Other analysis really from the game today, the big difference between the 2 armies was secondaries. The final score somewhat masks the fact that actually both armies were drawn on primary objectives, 40 points each. As I say, the game started really well for me in that respect, maxing those out on the first 2 turns, but then sort of a lack of control over the last couple of turns meant that my opponent got to max out in the later turns of the game. The secondaries, however, were where my opponent really took over control of the game from a winning perspective. He picked up the full 10 for deploying scramblers. I was highly frustrated with my lack of being able to finish that one off. I had nearly a full squad of infiltrators in combat with 4 noise marines for a couple of turns, and they failed to do any damage at all, which meant that they couldn't push on into the enemy deployment zone and pick up that last scrambler that I needed to. I'd done the other 2. Grind them down I took mainly because I thought I had the firepower on the board to be able to put units down. I failed to really maximise the fire output on the first turn. My opponent had a lot of redeploy shenanigans, and that meant there was very little on the board that I had that could see much. I should certainly have deployed my snipers better, and my Phobos captain better. They spent most of the game out of the way and not being able to shoot anything. They were holding me an objective, so in that respect they were picking me up primary victory points, but didn't really affect the enemy forces in the way that I wanted them to when I picked them for the list. Grind them down, therefore I really suffered. I had a bad day with the dice, like I said, and I said to my opponent on about turn 4, I don't think I'd actually made a save, or it felt like I hadn't made a save up until that point. I was certainly seeing a lot of 2s, and the last secondary that I took was domination, which I did okay. Again, for the first couple of turns I was picking that up, but then once my opponent's reserves hit, and they hit all in one spot with a really heavy punch, they took out my ability to sort of outscore him in that respect. So I perhaps didn't have quite the board control that I thought I was going to. Certainly from the first couple of turns I thought I'd got that sewn up, and it turned out not to be the case. And yeah, things generally went sort of downhill from there. Once the Alpha Legion started doing what they do and popping up out of nowhere and sort of scaring the crap out of you, then they started turning the tide. So, as I said, I've had a bit of a rejig of the list, taken out the big sort of point sink. Sure, 5 Inceptors is still a big, heavy investment, about 250 points, but I've got then more control with those as to where they come in, how they come in, and with them being infantry, the way terrain works in the game these days in this edition, they should be able to pick on targets better without being able to be targeted in return. I've had some good success with them in the past, and certainly they generally come in and kill what they target, and so if I can bring them in right so that they can target something isolated, something at the end of a battle line, to limit the returning fire, they can certainly start to affect the outcome of the game in the way that my opponent did today, and I failed to. The extra Stalker Intercessors give me a bit more control of the board in terms of holding objectives. They've got good range. Being a Raven Guard successor, the Swords of Dawn can really make use of the target sighted stratagem in turns 2 and 3, and certainly I've had a lot of success before with a 10-man unit of Stalkers picking out characters and knocking those down over those middle turns. It should be that with the snipers and the Phobos captain in the list, I shouldn't struggle to put down enemy characters, and so Assassinate should be a good target for me. I didn't take it today because I know that the Alpha Legion have a couple of nasty stratagems that stop you being able to target things unless they're the closest, and also with the way the list building works now in 9th, a couple of characters is what you would see in most lists. I think going forward you're going to be seeing battalions, probably just with the 2 HQs. Some lists will have more where they're heavily dependent on characters to function, sort of more like Death Guard, Genestealer Cult, that kind of thing. But with only 2 enemy characters on the board and one of those being in reserve, I didn't feel that today was really the day to try and pick out Assassinate as a secondary. I mean, as it happens, I didn't touch either of the characters for the whole game, so that was probably a decent choice in the end. But certainly I think there were other secondaries I could have chosen that would have been more effective. Priority target, the mission specific secondary, would probably have helped. I could have scored that for a couple of turns, certainly, although I would then have struggled later on, because the units that were holding those that objective, they were being targeted by Khorne Berserkers, so I mean they were dead, and not really in the game. I mean, I tried the auspex scan stratagem when the Berserkers turned up, and 5 shots failed to get me any hits on 4s, so a bad day at the office today, really. Probably a bit rusty. Deployment was a little bit slack. There were some differences that I should have made. I probably made some poor decisions in terms of unit placement because of the terrain, and sort of trying to place units that looked like they should be where they were in the terrain, rather than necessarily than playing the game. But at the outset, that was my intention, to play in a narrative style and to play what fitted the story behind the force. So a few little regrets in terms of the result of the game, but certainly none in terms of the choices that I made from a narrative perspective. So where do we go from here? Well, I've got another game on Wednesday. That is against Winter's SEO, so really looking forward to that. It's my first game against him, so I can't wait to get down there and get a game on. I'll be taking mainly this list with the changes that I've just outlined, so hopefully we'll be a bit more air quotes competitive. I'll give him a bit more of a run for his money than I did the Alpha Legion today. Don't know what I'm facing yet. Could be Orcs, could be Nids, could be Death Guard. Of the three, I'm probably least keen on facing the Death Guard, most keen on facing the Orcs. Might be quite happy to play Nids, but I have really struggled against Death Guard previously, so whilst obviously I'd be more than happy to play any of his armies, that's the one I think I would struggle against the most, and I would really need to be on my game, I think, to take away the win against them. Not got any other games arranged at the moment, but hopefully we'll be getting some booked in before too long, and we'll get some more reports done for you. See you on the next one.